Dear viewer, dear listener, so many choices that we have today in modern consumer society, whichever you might be. This is a letter. It's coming from a very dark place, quite literally a dark place, under the stairs in the flat. The stairs, of course, don't exist, the accommodation being a flat, a single level, not an oligarchical stack. But this letter, nevertheless, is coming from that place. It's coming from someone dressed in a dressing gown, who's finally realised, of course, the implications of lockdown and has lost track, indeed, of the very week in which this message is going out. The rain has finally come after the hottest and the warmest and the brightest April on record, which itself, of course, while pleasurable to experience, is not in any way a good thing in the longer run. So the rain has come back. We are now back in the London, in the English rain, the normal weather for this time of year and arguably for most of the year until recently. My name is Gareth Evans and I am the host of LRB Screen at Home, a new initiative, or newish now. We're into our fourth week it is, I think, of this wonderful initiative, created, curated, imagined, conceived and delivered by the London Review of Books and the London Review Bookshop, both London-based organisations with an international reach and a mission, a desire to convey the best of literary and other culture to you by whatever means possible. And this is the latest means, given the situation in which we find ourselves here and, of course, globally. I do hope it finds you well and all of those around you well. But we have a mission, of course, now to convey the information for the coming week's screening. As you will know, if you've listened to these already, a newsletter is sent out from the London Review Bookshop on Thursday, inviting you to attend a screening, an online viewing of a particular film that speaks in some way to the moment in which we find ourselves, creatively, tangentially, associatively. As Emily Dickinson herself said, it thinks slant, perhaps, in relation to the situation that we're all sharing and the possible implications of it for the longer term. During the course of the few days following Thursday, until the following Wednesday, in fact, you have the chance to watch that film, to think about it, of course, you share the experience with friends at a safe physical distance, of course, and then to join me and my guest, the maker or commentator on the film, on Wednesday at 7 o'clock UK time on the London Review Bookshop's YouTube channel, specially established playlist on that channel for the very purpose of encountering the said guests in conversation. And you can join that conversation manually, should we say, digitally, in both the old and the new way, by typing questions into the comments section of the YouTube screen. And those are relayed to me by an extraordinary technology directly into my ear. And those are read out and engaged with by the said guests on the day. So we've had some wonderful presences already in this strand, and delighted to continue that in the coming week with another duo. We recently hosted Andrew Cotting and Ian Sinclair, filmmaker and writer, respectively, and now we are hosting two filmmakers. Mania Akbari, the extraordinary Iranian actor. You might remember her from Kiarostami's 10, where she held the screen for the entire duration of the film. That launched her internationally, but of course she is more well known now as a major filmmaker in her own right, engaging directly with issues of exile, experience and the body in a series of acclaimed feature-length essays. She's joined in that essayistic endeavour by Mark Cousins, who I'm sure needs no introduction to many of you, based in the UK and in fact internationally, of course, a cinematic historian, a cinephile par excellence, an essayist, maker of numerous exploratory documentaries on a whole host of subjects, formerly a critic in some way or shape or form, of course the television host of Scene by Scene, and a former director of the Edinburgh Film Festival. He is now undertaking a range of activities on the page and on the screen, taking the full history of cinema, the full, diverse, internationalist range of cinema, both in the story of film and more recently Women Make Movies, a journey through the films of women filmmakers, often, of course, overlooked. Not Mania's, of course, which are not overlooked by Mark, who's a great admirer of her work, or by the wider cultural community. Now, they made a film together called Life May Be in 2014, which is a series of letters between them, ranging across aesthetics, travel, ideas of philosophy and being, and grounded in their own experience in very different ways, as they send image dispatches across the world to convey a journey of life, experience, towards a form of understanding our place in the world in the current moment. And it seemed incredibly relevant and in fact necessary, I think, to show this film and to be in conversation with maniamark about it. We can of course send letters still. This in some ways is an audio letter to you, the viewer and listener. You'll notice that the image of course accompanying this spoken word is a stock image of an envelope, and that is of course the main conveyance of a letter. Letters serve a number of purposes: to communicate information between people, of course, to convey feelings of affection or anger or regret perhaps, but also of course they serve to bypass CCTV. One of the ways that you can enter the house of another person is via a letter, of course, and you're not normally spotted on surveillance cameras or other forms of observational technology. Once in the house, of course, conveyed on the paper, you are more or less free to move around as the receiver sees fit, placing you on sideboards, sofas, and possibly occasionally in a waste paper basket. While you're in the house, of course, you will experience them close up and personal. That's what a letter can do in a way that an email can't, of course. An email is still a conveyance of information and possibly the aforementioned emotions, but it doesn't quite carry the same charge. I've hinted here that this is an audio letter. It's lacking, of course, in both a strong visual and also, of course, in any kind of material reality that you can take away in your hand. But that's all we can do at this point, I'm afraid. As I'm saying, in the dark place under the stairs that don't exist, there's not much left to me except to record this message. As I said, Mania, of course, wonderful Iranian filmmaker, now a citizen of the world, as is Mark Cousins. We, of course, remember that our former leader in the UK, at least, Theresa May, thought that citizens of the world were citizens of nowhere. But, of course, nowhere is better than the world. The world is one of our great places. In fact, it's arguably the place in which we find ourselves and in which we will continue, we hope, to find ourselves as long as we may last, which might not be that long. We'll have to see. Mark Cousins is not Iranian. He was born in the English Midlands. He grew up in Northern Ireland and he has lived for many years in Scotland, which leaves only Wales for him to spend some time in until he has completed the union of the current United Kingdom. Given the way things are going, he might be the only thing that holds the whole union together if he spends some time in Cardiff or indeed in Mid Wales or in some of the upland areas of the Welsh North. I think he owes it to us, to all of us, and to the future of the union to decide to spend some time when he can, of course, when lockdown is lifted and travel becomes more possible, in fact even encouraged to revive the collapsed economy, that he actually does go across the border into Wales and enjoy the wonderful pleasures to be found there. This is a letter, as I said, and for younger people who are listening, if there are any younger people listening who might not know actually what a letter is, just use it as a kind of word, some kind of conveyance to describe older people and what they get up to. I have heard that millennials now are collecting stamps in the current lockdown experience, working back through various artisan traits of their ancestors and rebooting them for the digital age. Stamps, of course, are the means by which a letter is conveyed from one place to another. And in fact, there is a millennial subculture within the stamp collecting community that actually tries to collect stamps wherever possible from places that no longer exist. This is republics, various forms of enclave, possible split nations, etc., whose actual geographical boundaries and in fact nomenclature and actual identity no longer exist in the world as we find it. But of course the stamps remain, and they are the trace of a former kingdom, a former territory that felt at one point that it had the chance to mark its identity with stamps. This of course could be the way that the UK is heading, a territory that no longer exists in the near future, which is why it's all the more important for those of us who do wish the union to continue that Mark Cousins does go to Wales in the near future. I think we can all agree now that the letter I'm delivering is starting to ramble seriously off-piste into the wooded areas of the slope, and that would not be obviously good for any of us, and also not good for me, because under the stairs, already a wooded area, of course, due to the nature of the cabin structure in which I find myself, I would certainly would not wish to go further into that wooded area. I'll be speaking, as I said, to two people again, as I did just recently. It's It's a challenge, of course, because 2 people outnumber me. Therefore, they have great power. But as we know, with power comes responsibility. So I do hope they use their time on air wisely and convey great insight and wisdom to you, which I'm sure they will. It's been a real pleasure, in fact, a boost to my day in darkness here, to convey this message to you. And I will now leave you with a warm evening wish. And I hope that wherever this message finds you, whatever time of day or night it is, that you are able to join us with the film Life May Be from Thursday until Wednesday, and the following Wednesday, the Wednesday ending this screening process at 7 o'clock UK time, to join me on the London Review Bookshop YouTube channel, where I will be in conversation with Mania Akbari and Mark Cousins. Thank you very much.